And y'all, oop, they done did it again. So let's talk about this shit right now. Netflix, I'm starting to feel like this is starting to become a little bit like deja vu when it comes to these Netflix movies. Saying almost like the exact same shits, right? Netflix is kind of going into this big blockbuster craze. They're just going into movies in general. Last few movies have been shit. Mute is a very ambitious movie that I actually slightly liked because of the ambition and the director itself, but it just kind of crumbled, right? It was just a movie that had nice ideas. But that's the kind of thing about Netflix, or even Naked with Marlon Wayans. I remember that movie. It's like, and then these Adam Sandler films. I feel like Netflix should just kind of adopt the slogan, "We're Netflix and we suck at films," because that's kind of the case here. Going into this thing. Now we're talking about The Outsider, and here's the thing about The Outsider. A lot of people are actually kind of talking about Jared Leto this, Jared Leto that. And believe me, I want to say that Jared Leto is the biggest problem with this movie, but he is absolutely not. I think the biggest problem with this movie is actually that it's not very interesting. Honestly, this is actually a pretty dull film. The trend of Netflix's movies that are kind of just a big disappointment continue. I thought the trailer that kind of released was actually kind of decent, but I think it was actually more because of the Rule song and less because Jared Leto was looking cool. Honestly, I think Jared Leto is both a positive and a negative to this movie. And I know it's kind of a weird thing to kind of say that, but he's both a positive and a negative, literally. I think Jared Leto actually does a decent enough performance, even though he does kind of seem like he's doing a very bad impression of like Ryan Gosling from Only God Forgives. But that's just kind of the simple case. But on the same thing is that this dude is fucking cringy to sometimes watch. He sticks out like a chick with a dick, and I think that's the big problem. The movie doesn't really try to do anything very original. And I feel like it is the same type of movie that we've seen countless times before in the gangster type of genre. Now I get it. We've had countless gangster movies, from Scorsese to fucking De Palma. But either way, there's some sort of originality in like the copycats in some way. I feel like this movie doesn't do anything. And even if it does copy, it doesn't do it in any sort of interesting way to the point where it grabs your attention, right? Now, when it comes to this movie in general, the idea on paper sounded very interesting. A white man coming into the Yakuza and actually joining them, and that could have been interesting from an outside perspective to tell the story. The problem is, the movie doesn't actually dive deep enough into that shit to the point where you don't care. Starting with the main character, played by Jared Leto. You don't care about this dude, because you get no information on this dude whatsoever. You get slight information, and you may be supposed to fill in the blanks, but for the most part, this dude is pretty much just empty. Honestly, I got more information, which is a little bit ironic, from the dude from Mute than Jared Leto in this movie. Jared Leto just kind of coming across as just like a very stoic guy, and as I said, he's kind of doing the Gosling impression. It seemed like the movie that Gosling would just be like, no, I kind of done this already. This is kind of lame. But that's just kind of the case. Now, going into this thing, people said, this looked like Last Samurai, the white savior complex. I don't know about that, per se. It kind of reminded me more, and I recommend you go see this movie, The Yakuza with Robert Mitchum, is on YouTube. You can see it, 1974, look it up, or Gangster VIP, which is also very similar. It's not in those veins either, but because it's just not simply put good. They never really try to take advantage of the outsider perspective, and we could have got a little bit more into that. Honestly, this movie is so obsessed with Jared Leto being as the lead. Like, this is pretty much a Jared Leto movie first and foremost, and not a gangster film. Because Jared Leto is in every single fucking basic scene in this entire thing, and he's pretty much at all of it. And that goes back to both the positive and negatives of this shit, is that when Jared Leto's on screen, you care because he's Jared Leto and because he's in every fucking scene of the movie. When he's not on screen, you don't care because the movie doesn't dive deep enough to give anybody else character development, let alone Jared Leto. He doesn't get development at all. So therefore, when you have scenes with other people, you don't care, and they just kind of feel like very unimportant people. Now, I always throw video game analogies out there, right, with these NPCs. When you have NPCs in open world, it makes the world feel alive, right? Got a little bit more personality. When you don't have NPCs kind of like doing shit in the background and kind of important, it just kind of feels a little bit dead. And that kind of feels like this movie. The movie needs energy. It doesn't have it. Any of the ideas that they kind of show out here, it's not very interesting. Yes, it's got betrayal. Yes, it's got violence, but we've kind of seen this shit before. And it doesn't really do anything. If there's any twists and turns that may surprise people in this thing, you may literally be bored out of your mind. By the time the twist comes, you literally just be like, okay. That's literally it. Now, I don't want to rip this movie apart completely. I like the Yakuza type of style, but I never could buy the fact that a white guy would join the Yakuza. I get it. It's a movie. But the problem is it just never really felt like they gave a good enough reason as to how did he join. Per se, like what was really like I get why he joined. They showed why that, but it just never really explained too much or went into good enough detail on it. And I think that's my biggest problem with the movie also. Overall, I felt like it might have been me, but I saw some shaky cam shots. That was just my thoughts. And overall, like I said, it's just really Jared Leto's movie, and then there just happens to be Asian people. Personally, I think this movie actually could have been at least a little bit positive for the most part. It still would have been the same fucking movie for the most part, but you could have had the whole concept of the outsider. Just take out Jared Leto and put in Asian. Japanese Asian person, American Asian person for the most part. Somebody who was born in the States, travels to Japan, and then he kind of takes Jared Leto's spot or is in the role of Jared Leto. That would have been more interesting. Would have been like Sleeping Dogs for the most part, but at least that would have also been interesting how a actual born Japanese person compared to an American Japanese person would have been a very interesting thing to kind of combat instead of just like, hey, he's a white guy, they're Japanese, merge them some bitches together because that just makes sense. Now, I don't think this is as embarrassing as The Great Wall with Matt Damon, because let's be real here, Damon was doing a very high chief type of impression with the big beard, basically. But this is not really interesting. I was fuck up, but I'm still going to continue anyway because that's what I do. Either way, this movie is very dumb. It has some interesting shots. It's kind of done decently enough, but the movie just feels like it focuses on one thing and one thing only, which is Jared Leto, and it doesn't do a good enough job of kind of like diving deep into the Yakuza mindset, I felt like. And I've seen the Yakuza mindset dive deeper into other films. Even the movie I just said, the Yakuza 1974 with Robert Mitchum. I feel like those things do it better, and I feel like, or even The Last Samurai had something a little bit more interesting where you kind of dive deep into the culture. I never got that here. And it just comes across as something that we kind of been there, we've done that, and therefore this one's different apparently. You've seen all these gangster movies, great, but none of them had Jared Leto. That's basically what kind of sets this movie apart. It just got Jared Leto. Either way, you may not get anything out of it. You may get something out of it. It's up to you because, like I said, it's free. If you're paying $10.99 a month for Netflix, that's basically how I kind of see it. Either way, comment, subscribe, and like. Look up those recommendations. Share this video if you can. That would actually be very helpful. But comment, subscribe, and like. You know the fucking generic shit people say at the end of these videos. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.